Welcome, everybody, to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, we talk about four different types of freedom: time, financial, location, health freedom. And in that light, I've always been a curious student of life, trying to understand what makes people successful and go out and find those interviews and share those with you. So today I have Wade Galt, and he's an entrepreneur and he's a coach and he's also a software company owner. But today is going to be talking all about entrepreneurship, independence, creating your ideal life. So I'll bring Wade onto the show and introduce him and let him talk about his journey. So Wade, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I love that you're very clear about the freedoms you're talking about. And we sometimes forget about the health one. That's obviously a really important one. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tell us, how you got started, your background, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So parents are from the islands, from Trinidad and Tobago. I wasn't born there. I was born in Canada, but parents are from used to being big fish in a little pond. My dad wanted, and my mom wanted something bigger. So they went to Canada to study. That's where I was born. They came back to the US from some events. They thought they were going to go back to Trinidad. The country wasn't so stable. So I grew up in Southeast Florida. Dad's an entrepreneur. Mom is a stay-at-home mom slash thinker slash philosopher. So I always had this balance of looking at how do you excel in life. And dad's an athlete. He played water polo for his country and did different things. So how do you excel? And yet at the same time, how do you balance things? How do you achieve? How do you make money? How do you make sure you enjoy life? And then definitely, even just being around a lot of our culture, even though I grew up in Southeast Florida, a lot of their friends from the islands moved up at the same time because there was some political stuff going on. And so I grew up very much part in the American culture, which I love, and part in the Trinidadian culture, which is very much like a lot of island cultures, very similar to a lot of South American cultures, where family is extremely valued. Time off, enjoying life is considered by most people more important than achievement. So having that nice balance of the two, it's always been something where I've looked at how do I make sure I'm doing both, not just one of them.
Interesting. That's a fascinating story. We could go off so many tangents. And so one thing is talking about creating more energy and fun in your life by doing work that you love. Tell us about that.
Sure. So when I first started doing work, I had this idea that there were certain things I wanted to do. I wanted to be a teacher, a psychologist, do some certain things, at least that's what I thought I wanted to do. And at the same time, my father said, hey, look, you know what? There's always the idea also of having a business that generates residual income, that you help people. And, so trying to find this balance of doing what I love, making money, and then also having time to enjoy it. I think different people experience it different ways. Some people make great money doing something that they're just really talented at. They might not love it, and they have an awesome life outside and they have a lot of time to enjoy it. That can be awesome. Some people do what they love and they may not make as much and yet they enjoy it. And then some people do both, which is awesome. If you do what you love, you make a lot of money. These are a lot of the people that we know that are famous: Lionel Messi, Taylor Swift, or George Clooney. People that they seem to be doing kind of covering all the bases. But there's many people that aren't kind of doing any of them, or they're just kind of struggling with each of those. And so what I found is, number one, I think we have to be doing whatever it is that's somewhere between our hobby, our passion, not even so much our calling in life. But for example, I love beach volleyball and have played most of my life since I was 16. When our first child was born, I thought the best thing I could do as a dad was to be hyper present with my family. And so if you can picture this, do you have kids?
No, I don't have kids.
Okay. Well, just to give you an idea, imagine having a situation where you say, okay, I normally play volleyball. And I work from home. I'm now going to have my wife be at home now. She was working, but now she's staying home with the child. My wife, the new baby, and I are going to be in the house most of the time together, all the time. And that's a great strategy. It was not a good strategy, by the way. and meanwhile, I didn't get to play my volleyball. And I thought, well, no, that I'll get to that, or I'll get to that in a few years. And it wasn't very balanced for me. And so some people can find that thing that they like in their work. Some people find the thing that they love. But there's a shift that happens when when I talk to most people about, let's say, having a 4-day work week lifestyle or working less or whatnot, they're usually in that place of running away from something. I hate my job. I don't like this. I want to move away from that. And it can still be a good indicator. There's nothing wrong with that. But hopefully you reach a point where then you say, okay, I at least enjoy my job and I don't have to run from it as much. And now my focus is not just on not working. It's more about how do I enjoy my life outside of work and how do I enjoy my life inside of work. So I think in most fields, there's so many different angles or in different professions. Or if you work for, I don't know, an NBA franchise, you could be an accountant, you could be in player development, you could be the person that runs a facility. There's so many different ways we can do things. And it's not so much about saying, well, if I find one job, there's some one magical job that it's the only one, it's my soulmate job and it's going to make me money and happy. You're not going to find that, in my experience. You're not going to find everything in anything, in any one relationship, in any one person, in any one job, in any one activity. But if you're not looking at those, and if you're taking a more one or two dimensional view of the world of, well, okay, I just need to make sure I pay my bills and make some money, there's so many more things you could be choosing that you're just, it's not horrible, but it just lacks so much.
Yeah, and then I love entrepreneurs that are coaches and influencers that create these big overarching concepts. And you have this idea of creating a 3-day weekend lifestyle where you can create more energy, have fun, but you can make more money, you can get more done, and at the same time, value your family and your relationship. So tell us about this concept.
Sure. So the way I like to explain to people that most people will get it is to think of yourself in the same way you'd think of yourself if you were an athlete. And I say that because if an athlete has, has a big game coming up, that athlete, if the big game is tomorrow, that athlete is not going to go out today and do 3 hours of exercises. They're going to rest. They understand there's a balance between training and rest. There's a preseason, there's a season, there's a postseason, there's an off season. Literally, you don't do stuff. And we understand that in the physical body. For some reason, we tell ourselves that the mental body doesn't work that way, or the mental part of the body. As if the intellectual dimension, the mental dimension it's just willpower. If you just, the same, but you'd say, wait, if you ran a marathon, a lot of people talk about I hit the wall. What do you mean? Literally, my body wouldn't go anymore. There was nothing you could tell me. Like literally, it stopped. That's it. Like a car completely out of gas. Well, our mind does that, but it doesn't look quite so obvious to some of us. And as you know, the symptoms are just more like on the lighter side, we make poor decisions. We get a little snippy. We're a little short with people. We might be a little rude. On the more heavier side, we become angry. We yell at people. We argue with people. And then even worse, if we're in a situation, especially as an entrepreneur, where we're trying to figure out things, or we have that constant thing of like, well, when we're making money, we need a little bit more rest. But then if we get too much rest, we get afraid we're not going to make the money. And is the money going to be there? That now this brain is constantly going. And if we're not getting rest, and if we're doing the whole either 5-hour energy drink, or I only sleep 4 hours a night because I'm a hustler, I'm a grinder. Statistically, there are some people, and you probably know this far better than I do but statistically speaking, that's a very low percentage of the population that can actually do that and make that real. And so what usually happens that you'll find out later, if and when you get your rest, get good sleep, get good healthy food in you, goes, wow, I just made a bunch of really bad decisions. And again, on the sports field, you'll see them. Oh, you dropped the pass. It was right in your hands. You fumbled the ball. Whereas we'll say, oh, did I buy the third coaching program that's on the same thing and I haven't implemented any of them and I've now dropped $15,000 and I have no results to show for it? Oh, why did that happen? Well, I was really overtired. I was too tired to implement the first two, but then I saw this awesome video and I was exhausted, but the video had the guy or the gal had so much energy. And so I pinged my credit card again and here I am again. So overall, a lot of it first is just an energy maintenance standpoint, and then just understanding if you have a great weekend, and you get to enjoy preferably 3 days in a row. And if you just think about the times you've had a 3-day weekend and you're excited and you hustle to finish your work and you get your work done and you figure it out, you find out what can wait till next week. And you say, no, I just got to go. My weekend is so important because we're going somewhere, or we're doing something, or I've got this cool thing going on. I'm going to figure it out. The world's not going to end. and I'm going to come back, let's say it's Monday, and I'm going to, I'll pick up from there. If you have something exciting enough to do on your weekend, then you're going to be more likely to do that. And you'll figure out is part of the short answer to a lot of the other things. And you'll start just naturally putting the things to the back burner at your job that really probably could have been ignored. You won't have as much time to do the less productive things. You'll have forced yourself to be more productive. And if your weekend's exciting, you'll want to do that. Now, if you have nothing to do on your Friday, especially if you're an entrepreneur, and you show up or you wake up in the morning, and you're like, well, I can either do nothing today because I've planned nothing, or I can go to work. Well, any even remotely responsible entrepreneur says, well, if I can do literally nothing or go to work, I should go to work. Unless you say, no, I'm going to rest today, or I have this cool thing planned with my friends, and it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be epic. It doesn't have to be over the top, but it's something that not only you enjoy, that literally though is going to have you when you come back in Monday, missing work to where you're so excited that you come in and you hit the ground running.
Yeah. And it's almost like counterintuitive. Think we're thinking, we should be hustling more and grinding more, sleeping less, eating poorly. And it's actually the opposite. If you actually like take a day off or, rest and your performance improve. Why do so many people like, what you're talking about is timeless, and it's gold. But why did so many people fail to make this time to enjoy family, friends, and life?
I think there's a few things. So if you look at just the world, and unless the data says, whether it's Gallup or these companies that run polls, that about 90% of the people on the planet who are in the workforce work for somebody else, and only about 10% are entrepreneurs. So first of all, if anybody's saying, well, why them or they, or rich get richer, poor get poor, not that being an employee is a path to poverty. I mean, LeBron James is an employee; he's doing okay. But at the end of the day, there is a certain level of willingness to achieve, to strive, to go beyond, to sort of break inertia or to break gravity, to say, okay, I want something better. So a lot of people are. Well, and definitely, even if you go pre-COVID, especially before things had to get flexible, before employers had to say, well, maybe, okay, gosh, yes, you can work from home. Okay. You go before that. So many people really are, and the word is they're settling. And so what happens is they're doing a job, and even if they like the job, it's like, I wish I had more time. And if you look at even from a worldwide perspective, people in many other countries have 6 weeks vacation, 8 weeks vacation. In the US, we usually have 2. And there's so much that's great about the US, but that's not one of those things. And so, especially living here in Florida, you see people come down and they're trying to, in 2 weeks, get in 50 weeks worth of relaxation. And so a lot of it's just not set up as well. And so people are going into jobs, they're not as excited. They don't have a vision of what's awesome on the weekend. So when the weekend comes, it sounds something like this for a lot of people. Well, you know what? My week stinks. I'm going to enjoy my weekend. And very often that means I'm going to spend a lot of money to enjoy my weekend. And now you say, oops, any of the money you could have had to start a new business or to take 6 months off, any of the time or energy you could have had to start a side business, you're so exhausted. You come home and you say, okay, well, I'll just, and it never happens. And so at some point, any entrepreneur knows you take some sort of a leap. It can be a crazier leap, or depending on how much money you have aside or how much you do or don't have that you know how to do it. It might not be a crazy leap. I mean, if you're going to be a doctor, there's a huge upfront risk you're taking. What if you don't like it? What if you're bad at it? What if you can't find a good job? What if the whole situation shifts? What if there's a new technology? So there's risk involved. But so I just find a lot of people are unaware that there's something more. And so that's almost a philosophical, on a very specific tactical standpoint. If you work for somebody, we know that we say, okay, I've got to earn more money as I evolve. Maybe not every year, but like if I'm not going to make the same money at 30 years old that I was at 20, and at 40, I should be making more money. So we say, okay, if you don't pay me more, and I'm now talking, let's say, as an average, good, healthy employee, mindset wise, if you don't pay me more or give me opportunities to earn more, I'll eventually leave. I'll go somewhere else where there's more opportunity. Most people, I can't say most, but it feels to me most people I talk with like, yeah, okay, I get that. I would do that. I agree. But if you tell those people, even the ones that are making 6 figures, 7 figures, and have company cars and all this stuff, say, but have you negotiated for more paid time off? for more freedom, for more free time. Nope, I didn't even consider that as part of the equation. And again, for many years that hasn't been. Now it's such a part of the equation, so much so that I'm 51, I'm a Gen Xer. The millennials, they already get it. I can work remotely, travel the world, do this, that, and then the Gen Zs, the ones in their early 20s, can't everybody work from anywhere they want in the world, make US wages and live in Bali and this. And no, not everybody can do that. But so a lot of it's just what we assume is what's possible. And it's not as hard as it is. If all you did was say, I'm going to live off of, let's say, 40,000 a year, and then when you start making more money, you get to 50,000 a year, rather than spending 50, still live off of 40 and say, I can now cut a day off of my work week. It can be that simple sometimes. And again, it's more possible than ever to negotiate with employers and say, yeah, I'd still like to work, but I'd like to give you 100%, but 4 days a week, not 5. And that's very possible. And of course, as an entrepreneur, it's really just up to us to be able to come to that conclusion.
Yeah. And so that's really, and then what kind of careers or jobs are best suited to creating a 3-day weekend lifestyle?
So almost anything if the compensation is creative, but in general, definitely salespeople, anybody that's purely results based, that's so, hey, if I can get results in 2 days or 3 days, that's kind of simple to see. My general practitioner works 4 days a week. She does not work more than 4 days a week because she doesn't want to. So, and again, now I don't know everything about her, but from talking to her and from just observing her, she seems comfortable with the income she makes. She's not feeling like, oh my God, if I don't make more, I'm not going to be happy. Some of the tougher positions, at least up front, are service positions. So somebody might say, oh, wait, I'm in service. I'm in the service industry. Well, okay, if you look at, let's say, hotels, well, they just have all sorts of staff schedules. If you're in the service industry, if you can afford to take 80% of your current income, and you said, well, or even if you said, hey, during the off season, can I take off more days? Because some people don't necessarily want a 3-day weekend. They might say, I want to work when my kids are in school, and when my kids are out of school, I want to be on vacation. So there's a lot of different ways it can look. But really, almost any job, if you can get the employer or the clients to understand that you're there to provide a result, not you occupying a chair, and if you can agree on the dollar value of the result, then it's just a question of how frequently and how many of those results can you achieve. And if you can achieve that in a certain amount of time, it really, it doesn't have to be a certain way. And so even, again, because I've heard somebody say, well, wait, I'm a doctor, I'm a GP. People, I said, well, wait, are you available literally 24? No, people will get injured. What do? Well, they go to the walk-in clinic or they go to the hospital. Like there's these protocols that are so in place. And so it really comes down to first thinking, though, results-based, even if you're not going to be an entrepreneur, thinking like an entrepreneur that says, okay, I have to deliver a certain level of value in order to get paid. But also, if I do deliver at a good level, I'm going to at least request or ask to be compensated in that way. And if you want to open a conversation with your employer, you can just say, hey, what would I need to do? What results would I need to get where you would gladly, not reluctantly, you'd gladly pay me the same income I'm making now and have me work 4 days instead of 5. Let's say you're working 5. And I once spoke about this with a friend of mine who owns a couple businesses. And I said, if your team members could get 5 days worth of results in 4 days, would you pay them for 5? He said, maybe, Wade. And philosophically, if I could guarantee that they were always getting 5, yes, but I know people are, they're inconsistent. He said, but if you tell me they're getting 6 days worth of results, sold. And it didn't have to be exactly 6. But in other words, if you're saying, if there's something in it for me also, if you're saying they're getting me more results, so I'm getting something and they're getting something, then of course. And I'd rather have somebody that's results focused. It's just a lot of people, don't want to even go that deep into a conversation because it involves thinking. It involves questioning things. It involves looking at the value of things. And then also, and this is the part where I just feel so blessed. I'm blessed by parents. Watched a dad be a multiple 6-figure entrepreneur when I was like in my teens. I've watched a lot. So I got to see money does not make people happier per se, but it makes things a lot more comfortable and it's nicer. So yeah, money's good. It's not the key to happiness. I watch many people make it and not necessarily be happier. So there's a balance, but I got to see that firsthand to know it can be done. Many people have not seen that. So it is one of those things where you kind of need to prove it. But again, if I prove to an employer that I'm awesome, just even to keep it oversimplified, if you're just awesome and they don't want to see you go, well, now you're irreplaceable. Technically, you're not, but you're in that place where it's like, wow, it's going to be really painful. And without being confrontational, you can say, look, it's important to you that I get these results. I've been getting these results. And if you have other results, I'm happy to work towards those. It's important to me that I have time for my family, for my life, for my mountain biking, for whatever it is. How can we make this work? And if you really want to hit in a good way, the spot that an employer is most concerned about is, I want to stay here for years and be productive for years. That's music to an employer's ears, because the worst thing we hate as employers over anything, taxes don't even come close to this, is employee turnover of a good employee, when then you now have to go spend another 3 to 6 months to a year just to get back to ground zero, to where you were. That's such a point of pain that just about any employer, even if you think you're like, I need to go because they won't give me this and that, whoa, first just say politely, not nicely, hey, you know what? Really, this is really important to me. Can we do something about that? Give them a week or so. Let them think about it. See what happens. Because very often, if they realize you're serious, without having to be a tough guy, without having to be confrontational, without even having to come up with some clever thing that you heard from somebody on a TikTok video, you can just say, this is important to me. And now some employees will say, go away. There's almost always somebody else in that field who's not like that, who'd love to have you, that you're already trained, you're walking in there saying, whoa, I just lost somebody. You're already trained. Great. And now you're renegotiating. So there's so much flexibility if you can create results. So it really is about focus on results and service first, whether you're an employee, an entrepreneur, a freelancer, a side hustler. It's still very much the same concept.
Yeah. How can people find you, follow you, and get in contact with you?
Absolutely. So the best place to reach me, if this rings a bell for you or lights you up, there's a website called 3dayweekendclub.com. And on there, we have a free membership site where we teach you some of the, there's some free training on there as far as some of the basics on how to get started in making the most of your life outside of work, and then how to start creating a 3-day weekend lifestyle, whether you're an employee or an entrepreneur, freelancer, side hustler, CEO, whatever it is. And that can help you start moving that direction. And then we also have deeper coaching programs for those people who like to go deeper.
And for all the listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. Wade's resources will be in the links and show notes. Be sure to check them out. Be sure to check out his social media, follow him. And thanks so much. And we're so happy to have you on. And we're going to call it a day.